These Canada rail strikes will be devastating. If these don't get rectified quickly, the economic devastation that we deal with on a per day basis of having our railways shut down will be so bad that we will struggle to recover for an extremely long time. And this is when our economy is limping along and barely getting by as it stands. We know we are running on these fake numbers. Our government is finally stepping in. They took too long to do it, but they are finally doing it, which good to see. But Freeland is trying to say the right things. We're going to fact check her in real time with some of the nonsense that she's saying, but this is important stuff for us to pay attention to. Let's get into it.
First time since both companies were founded more than 100 years ago, both Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Railways are not running. The two companies unable to come to a deal with more than 9,000 workers locked out of a core part of the Canadian economy. Mackenzie Gray joins us now from Ottawa to break down what is keeping the two sides apart. Good morning, Max. So bring us up to speed. We know this all started just after midnight. What's the latest on these railroads grinding to a halt?
12:01 Thursday Eastern Time in the morning, both of the railways locking out their unionized Teamster employees, which has ground rail traffic essentially in this country to a complete halt. These are the only two large railways, and they have a massive network across the entire country, meaning that goods $1 billion worth of day that normally travels by the rails are not going to be moving today and for the foreseeable future going forward because the sides do not seem to be very close. We've been speaking with the Teamsters, CN, and CP for the last week or so now, and it's been clear from the beginning that these two sides have not been close. In the statements that all sides put out last night, they're saying they're willing to come to the table and talk, but there still seems to be some major gaps. None of the things that when we
did you guys know that Bill Gates is one of the largest individual stakeholders of CN Rail, which means Bill Gates is the largest individual stakeholder of basically our rail infrastructure? Interesting.
Normally talk about strikes are the issues. You know, wages don't seem to be a huge problem right now. Really, from the union perspective, they're talking about safety concerns, and the core issues are really around scheduling, how much rest time, fatigue issues the unions say. And then on the side, in particular with CN, the union says that they are putting forward a forced relocation program, saying that workers would not have the ability to be able to say where they would work from. From the CN side, at least, they say, look, this isn't a forced relocation program. There's additional money that people are able to get. It's for a 90-day period. These things are totally false. Really public barbs between all sides in this situation.
Did you like the video yet? It's a small click for you, but it's a big help for the channel. It helps get the videos in front of more people, helps us grow and get the message out there. If you like what we talk about here, feel free to subscribe. Love to have you on board. Back to the video.
They've had federal mediators involved, but they have not been able to bridge any of the gaps. We've seen the workers locked out, and now we're seeing Teamsters across the country on the picket lines outside their workplaces. So certainly a challenging day for the Canadian economy and potential many issues going forward if this lockout continues.
There's obviously a lot of he said, she said in this, and I don't want to be some big freaking anti-union guy, but the union seems to be saying one thing and then the actual paperwork is saying another. So what we've actually seen is they said it's not about wages because they want to keep, public support. But a lot of the things that they're asking for are showing that they are actually asking for wages. And it's not just about the brakes and the safety, but it's easy for them to say, oh, it's about the safety. We don't want trains derailing in small towns. We all don't want that. That's a good thing. But when you do hear like, okay, wages is a main concern, it's like, the problem with unions, and particularly what seems like happening right now, again, these are all just the way I'm interpreting it as allegations, I guess, is that the unions always need to kind of prove themselves as being important. And in this case, they said, look, guys, we're going to fight for you. That's why you pay your dues.
Yeah, for sure. We've all known that for a while now. And you spoke with the Labour Minister on Wednesday, also aware of the implications of this work stoppage. What, if anything, is the federal government willing to do to end this disruption?
Well, Steve McKinnon also, the Labour Minister, echoed the idea that the two sides are quite far apart. He had met with CN and CP as well as the Teamsters, making it clear that the federal government wants a deal. Chrystia Freeland yesterday saying it would be sabotaging the Canadian economy to have this happen. Well, it's now happened. It's in the early stages of that. But the federal government does have powers they could use to be able to end this lockout situation. Two things. One, they could force binding arbitration, something that the railways asked the Labour Minister for, and he rejected. The other idea they could use is legislating them back to work. I asked Steve McKinnon about that. Here's what he had to say.
I'm not going to get into those kinds of what ifs, but Parliament isn't sitting. and Parliament is not something that can be recalled on a dime. So again, I don't think it's useful to speculate on these things. I think it's only useful to tell the parties, do the work, get a deal, and fulfill your responsibilities to the economy and to the country.
I wanted to show his statement there because look at that stupid, smarmy guy saying, oh, we can't bring Parliament back on it. Yeah, you can. You're government employees. This is an absolute national emergency. You can't bring the government back on a dime. Like, you guys can't legislate this. There's just no way to facilitate it, which I was happy to see. They actually did an update right before I filmed this video, so it was very timely because, you know, here's his announcement because they are getting arbitration going. And it's like, yeah, of course, you idiot. You can't just leave. It would be it is a national emergency to not have our rails running. Anyways, here's his statement.
In the current collective bargaining negotiations between Canadian National Railway, Canadian Pacific Kansas City, and the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference, an agreement has so far proven elusive. After months of negotiations, CN Rail and CPKC began lockouts while Teamsters Canada rail workers at CPKC went on strike at 12:01 a.m. this morning. These collective bargaining negotiations belong to these parties, but their effects and the impacts of the current impasse are being borne by all Canadians. And there is an impasse. As Minister of Labour, I am using my authorities under the Canada Labour Code to secure industrial peace and deliver the short and long-term solutions that are in the national interest.
Exactly. The national interest. So the fact that you lazy government employees were not willing to come in and, oh, you can't just bring everybody back. Oh, yeah, what are they up to? The summer vacation? Like, get back. These guys, oh, man. I could yell about that forever.
So the two options the federal government has, it doesn't seem like they're willing to use at this point in time, but obviously that situation could change if this strike continues on for a while.
Which it did.
Lockout, I should say.
For sure. But in the meantime, Mackenzie, what are we up against here? What's the economy up against? What are Canadians up against with the goods that are likely to be held up because of this stoppage?
Yeah, $1 billion a day in goods that move across the railways nationally. And it's all kinds of things that touches the Canadian economy. It wasn't just yesterday at 12:01 when the railways shut down that goods stopped moving. There's kind of been a progressive shutdown across the board. That's actually the reason why CN has said they needed to lock the workers out. They didn't think that the 72-hour strike notice that the union had given would be enough to be able to safely shut the railways down. So many chemicals haven't been moving for a number of days, the most concerning of which would be chlorine. It's used in drinking water to treat drinking water, and there have been concerns from the chemical industry in Canada that there could be, within 2 weeks or so, some cities that would run out of chlorine, potentially having boil water advisories, limiting use of water. We've reached out to a number of big cities. Toronto, as an example, says they have 3 weeks supply of chlorine on hand to be able to deal with this. Ottawa, Vancouver, Calgary also saying they would be able to get things by truck and are not concerned about it. The issues would likely be in smaller, more remote cities where it could be more difficult to get these things to. But outside of that, look.
Listen, you shouldn't be drinking tap water anyways, but my bigger concern is the food and the commodities. Like, we're at the end of the summer, like we're going to be harvesting, and we've been fortunate enough to have a very wet summer. You know, it wasn't great for fun, but it was awesome for the crops. And, you know, we've got a lot of stuff that is ready to be harvested, and our food supply, and then even just the other commodities that are getting affected by this. You know, Canada is a commodity-based nation. At the very least, we should be more commodity-based for our economy. Like, this is important. Like, this could be globally embarrassing for us.
Look, harvest season is coming up, or started for some farmers across the country. They're not going to be able to move their goods to port and get them out the door, seeing things pile up. Same thing with food that would be on the railways too. So all kinds of different things touching the whole Canadian economy. And CN has warned that every day that there is a lockout in this situation, on the back end, once this situation is handled, it will take 3 to 5 days to be able to move the goods that are not going to be able to move. So it's not just the front end issues of things being closed, it's the back end issues of being able to have things start moving again and deal with the backload of goods that are going to be able to move. So this is clearly a very negative situation for the Canadian economy and a difficult situation for the federal government to be able to navigate at this point.
Yeah, and the big thing is, like you said, you've got this issue with what's going to happen with the economy, because our economy is in shambles. We are barely hanging on, and we just finally are seeing inflation slow, which is allowing, after all of this time, because like we've said, the immigration has kept demand high, which has kept inflation high, which has means that the rates had to stay high. So now we are seeing a potential major lack of supply and inflation spike, which we're finally breaking through. Again, not a good way. It's breaking because our economy is absolutely in the gutter right now. So then I do have this video from, our lovely Minister Freeland, this wacky little lady. But I just thought this was, so she gets serious about the problem for once, because these guys do not get serious. But then I also found some of her other comments. I wanted to add some facts to it. So here we go. And yes, I sped her up by 0.25 speed because she talks so slowly.
Minister, with this potential rail stoppage looming, and just recently we saw port strikes cost the economy billions of dollars, how can you tell international trading partners Canada is a reliable place for business when labor disputes keep disrupting the flow of goods?
Canada is an extremely reliable place for business. Canada is an outstanding investment destination. And look, it's my job to say that, and I say it with utter belief and confidence. But guess what? Investors agree with me, and they are coming, and they are talking with their checks. This Polaris project is a huge investment on the part of Shell. Not too far from here.
Okay, let's check out this investment from Shell. So Shell developed a $1.35 billion project with the help of $745 million from the Alberta government and $120 million from Ottawa. So basically, over 50% of the money for this project, probably closer to 60, 70% of the money from this project came from government money. So great investment, Shell. It's good to know that we as the taxpayers are paying for almost all of it. Anyways, back to her.
Dow has made a historic investment, their biggest investment ever in North America. We've had major investments.
To their credit, I gotta be honest, the Dow investment was actually pretty huge for how much money they got from the government, but these other ones are brutal. We'll get into it.
From Honda, major investments from VW.
Oh, Honda and VW. Let's check out those. Okay, so the Honda automaker is putting in $15 billion to their Ontario operations. Oh, but what are they getting? $5 billion coming from the federal and Ontario governments. And I've talked about this before. They said it would be about 1,000 jobs. This is the problem with investment versus spending, which we've talked about in other videos. The federal and the provincial governments are spending. They are not investing. There is no return on investment, which basically means all of the way that we can recoup this money is off essentially employment taxes. So not only did taxpayers pay for this up front, we are also getting to pay for it by the people who are working there and getting their wages taxed again. So yeah, the people get to pay for it multiple times. Shout out to Honda. Back to Freeland.
This is a moment actually when the world is recognizing.
Oh yeah, I forgot to show you the Windsor plants because of which she said, oh, Stellantis is a great one. Oh yeah, that's awesome. The two governments said the agreement will see the companies receive performance incentives of up to $15 billion over 10 years, and Volkswagen will receive $13 billion in incentives under its deal. Wow, how in the world are we ever going to make that money back? We're not. That's going to take 100 years for us to make that money back. The reason I wanted to show these numbers is because she's acting like these companies are just coming here because they're so excited to do business in Canada. They're not. We are giving them everything to come here.
The Canadian advantage, whether that advantage is in our geological formations or our incredibly smart, innovative, hard-working people. I agree with you, though.
Or is it the unlimited money?
Right now, Canada is really moving in the right direction economically. We've had inflation within the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months. Interest rates have come down twice in a row. We have major foreign investment pouring into our country. And
Okay, inflation coming down, sure. Although the inflation would be coming down a lot more if we didn't pump in the immigrants. Then she brags about 2 interest rate cuts, which we've talked about before. That means the economy is doing poorly. They don't cut rates into a good economy. That's a way to stimulate. That means things are going poorly. I don't know how our finance minister can talk about that as being a win. It makes no sense. So, and then again, foreign investments coming in. yeah, we are paying them. We're bribing them to come in. It's like paying for an appearance fee for a celebrity.
Simply cannot afford, we cannot tolerate a self-inflicted wound. And that's why I am saying, you know, with real seriousness to the companies and to the union, your country is counting on you. Your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, every single one of them needs you to do your job, take your responsibility seriously, and get a deal.
You know, that's the only thing that she said there that I do agree with, guys. She's super serious. And I think, you know what? Union, smarten up. You've got an entire country held hostage right now. You know, railway companies, start to work with them. But that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. And have a great rest of your day.